Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Joy at Work. It's August 2020, and I'm just glad to be with you today. Have you heard the story of the executive who went on vacation for about a week or two? I think it was 2 weeks. Had a great time. They went to a place where they did not have any cell phone reception. They were really disconnected from their home office, and they had a great time, enjoyed themselves. And then they got back to the office, and when they got back to the office, there was a note on their desk, and the note said, "Hey, please come see me when you get in." And the note was from this executive's boss. So the executive goes into the boss's office and says, "Hey, you put a note on my desk. You wanted to see me. How can I help you?" And the executive says, "Hey," or the executive's boss says, asks, "Hey, how was your vacation?" And the executive goes ahead and says it was great. Was able to disconnect and all of that. And the boss looks at the executive and says, "I'm glad you had a great time. In the time that you were gone, we recognize we really didn't need you. We could get things done without you. Everything, went like clockwork, and we found out that, hey, I mean, we're just fine. So thank you for your service, but we will be separating from you today." Have you heard that story? I've heard that story a couple of times in my career. Um, it's a sad story. It's a concerning story. If you're going to make a decision on whether somebody's adding value based on a 2 week time period, well, I mean, what can I say? But the more interesting part of that story for me is the context in which I've heard that story. I've always been told in the sense of you never want to make it seem like you're not adding value. And I bring this up because what I found is that it's really hard for us, myself included, to truly disconnect from the workplace, even when we are trying to take a vacation, even when those who are superior to us in the organization say, take a vacation. Sometimes they're the same people who are emailing and asking us questions during that time, right? Fascinating and intriguing to say the least. And so what it ends up creating is this sense of I'm gone, but I don't want to be too far gone. I don't want to not be involved. I don't want people, in my view, I don't want people to feel like eh, I am not needed, as this executive in the story I just told figured out or experienced, right? And so what happens is that people engage for various reasons when they're supposed to be out, when they're supposed to be taking a vacation, when they're supposed to disconnect. We've created this sort of unspoken norm in the workplace, so to speak. And this is why it's part of, just generally speaking, the culture of most organizations, that even when you're on vacation, you're supposed to kind of sort of work. There's certain emails you have to check. There are things you have to respond to. Now, no doubt, like, there are always exceptions, emergencies, things happen, and you may need to get involved or respond. But I found, like, over the course of my career, the bar for responding keeps getting lower and lower and lower. It used to be, at least when I started, that it would be a major event. And by the way, when I started my career, and it's not like, it was eons ago, but cell phones weren't really a thing. Just a handful of people had cell phones. And so when you went on vacation, you were gone, gone. Like, if people needed to get in touch with you, in most cases, they had to call. But we live in a world where people can get you almost wherever, almost anywhere you go, except you intentionally disconnect. And I mean, like, turn off notifications or uninstall your email client and basically leave people one option: smoke signals and talking drums or something like that. That's the world we live in. We live in a world where we are creating just this pattern where being connected is kind of the norm, and kind of when you disconnect, people look at you weird. Everyone's experienced the workplace in different ways, right? So you might have been in a place where even when you were on vacation, it was expected that you were checking emails and responding to things. I don't know what your experience is, but for me, it's very, very curious that we find ourselves in this place, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose, in my view, of actually going on vacation, which I think is is a break. I truly believe that work is part of life. I don't believe in necessarily in this work-life balance. I think that work is part of life, and sometimes work needs a pause. Work needs to be something that we just put on the shelf for a few days or whatever, so that we can refresh, we can reinvent ourselves, we can come back renewed and re-engage and give our best to our employer or to our business or whatever it might happen to be. So the other side of the coin is, sometimes there's the cultural norm, your organizational cultural norm, what your boss's expectations, your peers' expectations, even your subordinates' expectations potentially, right? Might cause you to engage in certain ways. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is maybe you just love work a ton, right? You just really enjoy what you do. And someone asked me this on a post some weeks ago about, could joy at work itself lead to the inability to disconnect? And I think the answer to that question is obviously yes, right? Even in that post, I had a good friend of mine respond about the fact that he finds it hard to disconnect and he really enjoys what he does. I really enjoy what I do, at least most of it. There's some administrative things I would rather not do, but that's part of the part of the job, right? We we also need to be careful that even if you really, really love your job, so to speak, and derive a ton of meaning and fulfillment and satisfaction from your job, still need to be able to take a break. You need to be able to find rest. You need to be able to separate for a while. Because in doing that, you give yourself the opportunity to come back fresh, to come back with new ideas, right? Every time I'm able to truly disconnect from work in the traditional sense, or in the sense of not checking my emails or not trying to finish things, I find myself coming back to work renewed with new ideas, new thoughts, and how I can be a better leader, how I can engage in better, how I can be more reflective in the things that I do. So regardless if your organizational culture pushes you down the path of always being connected, or you love your job so much, you love work so much, work is really play, right? That you just want to be engaged. I would still suggest or recommend, maybe it's even a doctor's prescription, right? That you find time to disconnect and meaningfully disconnect. Do something different, whatever it is. I'm not going to suggest to people what they should do. We've all got our things, but consider doing something different. Consider taking a break. Consider separating yourself. It's very, very important. And if you're in a leadership role, I think it's extremely important, if you believe in this, to model this for others to see, to actually act in a way that helps others understand that it's okay for them to step aside for a few days or a week. The building's not going to collapse. Yes, it's not a sign of your weakness that the organization continues to function when you're not there. That's actually a good thing. If the organization requires you to be there, if your group requires you to be there all the time for it to function, then I would even question, what kind of job you're doing. So think about it. The next time you're going on vacation or PTO, make it a goal to disconnect as much as you can. You might not be able to disconnect fully the whole time, but maybe start with a day, then make it 2 days, and over time, develop that skill. All right. Thanks for listening in. Hopefully, this was helpful. Hopefully, people find this useful and helps them experience joy at work. I'll see you next time. Bye.